So where are we, boys? Where are we?
Don't know.
You don't know where we are? Okay, Cameron, where are we?
Joe the mole up there.
We're at the mole, the place where the moles live.
The mole.
And this old rusty car floating from the ceiling.
And
Oh look, it's
James Charles.
Codey's wig
No.
on the statue.
Don't do me like
Cameron's
that.
hat.
It's Cameron Dina.
Oh, there's a small little cafe. This is the waiting area for the Williamson's tunnels. Nice roof.
That's a winkle. I don't like
Sorry?
that. That's a long penguin.
Oh yeah,
there's
there's a long banana. These things seem to get everywhere.
I don't like them. I don't like that.
That's an interesting piece of art. Do you like it, Codey?
It's a long penguin. Weird. I mean, I do like it.
I think that's to represent the work that went into the Williamson's tunnels.
Yeah, maybe.
Look at this old picture of Liverpool. See?
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. What's a rent? Help me. No, remnabilia. Remnabilia. That's probably not saying it right, but you know.
Old Edge Hill clothing books.
So look at this, we've got candy here for 60 pence. Bottle of water, 60 pence. Twix, 60 pence. Kit Kat, 25p. These prices are low.
Too low.
That's very low, isn't it, Codey? No, that's not too low, it's good.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
I can buy a bit for you.
Inflation hasn't hit this place yet.
Yeah, it's good for grades.
Cameron's just sipping on a Tango.
And I'm dipping on a Coke.
This video was not sponsored by Tango. And it was not sponsored by Coca-Cola either, was it, Codey?
So we don't need.
No endorsements.
No. We need. Oh, old milk bottles. They used to shove the milk in them, and the milkman came. I mean, the milkman came for them, but the milkman didn't come back.
Found some marbles. Oh, Cameron's found a bowl of marbles.
I'm gonna take them, and I'm gonna play with them.
Oh, pick that up. Oh dear. We'll get a code.
Okay. It's gone.
And the girls have joined us.
What is it? Just help yourself.
No. Cans are 60 pence. Kit Kat's 25p.
Kit Kats? Heidi, you said Kit Kats.
People looking at the spider's webs in the toilet.
What's that? Was it?
Oh my god.
What have you found, girls?
Which? That man's so good. I like the bone now.
The woman looks weird.
Ew, it's a spider.
It is just as curly as yours, Heidi.
Yeah.
There's your mum.
Who's mum?
Their mum. No.
No. Oh my god, there's a giant penguin. Oh my god.
You wish.
What were they called again, Cameron?
One penguin.
Did you get those for free?
They're the one banana so much.
Daddy, did they get those for free?
I don't know. The mannequins?
No, did they get those coats? I do what?
Yeah.
Oh my god, I'm one. No, I didn't have it. Yeah.
That's not real material.
Come out. You're going to have to lag behind me. Come out.
You guys on this one? Did you want a couple minutes to finish your drinks?
No, it's fine.
I want to drink.
See the tunnels. The other thing we're doing is we're actually still working to dig them out and clear the tunnels out. So anybody fancy giving us a hand digging, and that's great. I'll show you. With a spade. And your hand's always looking for people to
You were
help.
hand digging.
But this is what we look like. So this picture here is what we look like when we first opened in September 2002. Now the thing to notice on this photograph is that floor there, because I'm sure you've guessed. Here it is with stands on it. But can you see on the picture the floor went right the way into this tunnel we're about to go into now. We laid that to get our first visitors in 2002, so 20 years ago. But after we'd laid the floor, we realised there was another tunnel underneath. So what we've done is we've taken the floor up and we started to dig down. So I'd just like you to see that before you go in, because you'll see straight away the progress we've made since we opened to the public. And let me also introduce you to Joseph Williamson. So this is the man that built the tunnels. This
It
picture
looks
here.
weird.
Well, this
Look,
picture was,
funny.
guess how old it was painted for his birthday, how old do you think he was?
100,000 years ago.
100, well he was 50, so this picture was painted for Joseph's 50th birthday. Now on the back of this picture it says, a good likeness of me, but when I'm half seas over, so a little bit drunk we think. He does look a bit drunk on the picture. So this is Joseph and Elizabeth, but I'll tell you a lot more about them as we go around. Most importantly, a bit of a challenge for you as we go through. So Joseph Williamson had a nickname, they called him the Mole of Edge Hill, because he loved to make tunnels underground. There's quite
He's
a lot
a
of moles.
mole.
There's
Why
quite-
is there a mole there?
Ah, well done. So there's quite a lot of moles hiding around the tunnels, so that's a challenge for you to go around, see how many you can find. So well done, this is number 1. I've got to warn you though that I had a little girl 2 weeks ago and she was the first person to find all of them. So that's a bit of a challenge for you, see if you can find all the moles as we go around.
Why is he fake?
Oh, because I think the reals
You
one
can't have
would run
real
away,
moles.
wouldn't they?
Yeah,
To count them.
we want to catch them.
What was the reason?
As we're getting on, I'll tell you a little bit about it. So basically, the short answer is we don't quite know.
Can I
But we've got some
have
theories about why we think he built them.
Oh my god.
I think I read that he just like to keep people in work.
Hello?
Oh wow.
Can I go from girls?
Mole.
Oh, well done.
Wait, where's the mole?
There on the ledge to the left.
Mole.
See it? Come on, follow mum.
Ooh.
Number 2.
Follow mum.
I found the mole.
Goodbye.
I see it's a squeeze.
Mole 1.
Hold on tight.
Oh, it's collapses now.
It's cold.
Mole. I like saying mole, yeah. It's fun.
I went it out. I can live in this hole.
So just as like the floor that we looked at on the photo, can you see that's what left of it there at the back?
Yep.
So that used to come right the way back here to where that staircase is. Underneath here, we basically had 150 years worth of rubbish because when Joseph Williamson died, which was in 1840, basically the tunnels just became an easy place for people to get rid of their rubbish. So by the time we came to open the Heritage Centre, they were full almost to the roof, and the job has been to gradually dig them out again and get access. So from the cobblestone floor to here, that's 1,000 tonnes that we've taken out. It took us 5 years.
There's
We
more
do it by hand.
down here.
Yeah, we're still digging, we're still working. Can you see over here? So what we do is we use spade and pick, we just fill up all these buckets, we wheelbarrow it out and we start again, so it takes us quite a while. And the reason we did that is, can you see the shiny torch down there? There is actually another tunnel down that way, can you see?
Oh yeah.
That goes underneath where we were standing, underneath the reception desk, out towards the stable yard. It actually hits a Victorian sewer at the end, so we're not going to go further that way. But what it leads to is this, so this is something we've been looking for a very long time. So this tunnel here is Williamson's triple decker. So when Joseph Williamson built it, he built a tunnel with a tunnel on top. So where you came in where the car park was, it was probably about that height, but it's been damaged at some point over the years. So it broke into there, it was Easter Monday 2008. We've been working on it since then. So I said this was 1,000 tonnes to take out. There's about 8,000 left down there, so it's going to take us a while. But the idea is maybe 12 months or so. I realise there's nothing worse than me saying there's a really brilliant tunnel down there that you're not going. We can see it's a work in progress. I'm hoping 6 to 12 months we're going to get people down to see it because it's about this wide, so it'll be worth it once we get down to see it. So coming back to a question about why Joseph Williamson built the tunnels, a lot of it is unknown. So we know that when Joseph was born in Yorkshire, he was from a glassmaking family, and when he was 10, his father moved the family to Warrington. And not long after that, Joseph died. So when he was 11, and you can imagine, he was just 11 years old, and he had to come here to Liverpool and get a job. His mother said he couldn't take a job. He got a job with the Taste, a snuff and tobacco business. His mother said he couldn't have that job unless he could also live with them in their home. So that's what he did.
Wait, carry on listening.
So what he did was he worked his way through the business over the years. He actually married his boss's daughter, which I think helps him out. But eventually he started his own snuff and tobacco business and became quite a wealthy man. And what he decided to do was lease the land on Mason Street. So I don't know if you all know, but Mason Street is basically at the top of the hill here. And you'd see if you came here in Joseph Williamson's day in the 1800s, you'd see straight away what we call this bit of Liverpool Edge Hill, because it was the edge of a hill. It just dropped straight down to the River Mersey, but that made it very fashionable because it was a nice place to live. You could look over the river. So he built more houses along
So you've been
Mason
only
Street.
privileged if you, I guess, if you lived up there back
It's
in
very
the
wealthy
day.
houses,
Is
yeah.
that why there's bricks under the grass?
Up here.
That's why there's bricks on top of mud because they might be buildings on the ground.
You talking about the cobble, sweetheart?
No.
Well, you're actually right, because not because there were buildings underground, but this is why we think Joseph started to build the tunnels. Can you imagine? So his houses were on the road, just right the way up at the top of this hill here. But the problem was that people had used this land as a quarry. So a quarry is where they take the stone away for building. So basically all the buildings around Liverpool have been built out of this stone. What that meant for Joseph when he came and tried to put houses at the top of the hill was there were big holes behind it where people had taken the stone away. So exactly like you're saying, what we think he started off doing was claiming back some land. So basically, can you imagine the men which got right down to the bottom here and they built an arch above their head. Once they've built the arch, they stand on it, and then they build another one above their head, which is why we've got tunnel on top of tunnel. Now the last tunnel, which was like this one above our head, exactly like you say, what they do is they put soil on, and there you go, he'd have nice gardens at the back of his houses. So you're right, that is why Joseph Williamson started off, to make space at the back of his houses for gardens. The big question is though, why did Joseph build tunnels for the whole of his life? And the honest answer is we don't quite know.
I think he got addicted.
Well,
I think maybe one of the gardens sinks, and I don't even think he was meant to find them. I think the garden sinked and then he just started digging a tunnel.
Well, I think
he realised there was space underground.
You're partly right, because I think he loved everything underground and he loved tunnels, so he was a rich man, why wouldn't you build loads of them? But I also think there's truth in the theory that you've hit. Now some people will tell you that Mrs. Williamson met a preacher and she was convinced the world was coming to an end and they built these tunnels to escape the Armageddon. I don't like that story, I don't think that one's true. But I think that it might have been about basically job creation, because if you can imagine in those days, so this was 1815, 1816, soldiers started to come back from the Napoleonic Wars, but it wasn't a professional army like in World War I or World War II. Once the soldiers came home, they were just back looking for a job, and there would have been a lot of unemployment. You might have learned in your history lessons in school about the Corn Laws, so basically bread was just getting dearer. So if you can imagine, men started to come back to Liverpool. Williamson had already started to build these little arches behind his houses, and we think men asked him for a job, and he found it hard to say no. And before he knew it, he had 200 men that were building tunnels anywhere. Can you hear the water coming through? I'll show you in a second. Actually, the water just comes through all the time from up above. So basically, he had 200 men building tunnels that didn't go anywhere. The story that makes me think that is true is apparently 2 men came to Joseph Williamson and asked Mr. Williamson if they could have a job, and he said, "Okay, if you come back tomorrow, there might be a job." So the 2 men come back the next day. They find the boss, the foreman at the site, and said, "Mr. Williamson says we can have a job." And he says, "Okay, what I want you to do is, can you see there's a pile of bricks here? You need to move those over to the other side." So the men say, "Okay," they move the bricks. Then they turn back to the boss and say, "Right, we've done that job, what do you want us to do now?" And he says, "Oh, just put the bricks back where you found them." And obviously the men complain. And he says, "Well, if you do what Joseph Williamson asks, then he pays you for it." Now maybe that's got exaggerated a bit over the years, but I think what I was trying to tell you about Joseph is it was about giving his wealth away, but not just sort of giving it out. People came to him, they earned a wage, they learned useful skills, they could support their families and they had the dignity of work. So I think it was about giving people a chance to come and learn useful skills as well as earn a wage. But there are more theories and we can talk about them as we go around.
Keep the people happy, happy life. What was it you said?
No, go and move.
When we what?
We're here moving the bricks.
Oh yeah, moving bricks. Maybe we should start digging our own holes.
Go where?
Just dig and dig and dig and dig.
What's the point?
I don't know. What's the point in Mr. Williamson doing it? Oh, there's a pigeon.
There's a duck.
Boys, girls, there's a duck.
Where's the duck?
At the bottom.
Another one, let's go. Did someone find another one? Is there one more? When you ask about
Does anyone spot this one here?
I did.
It's full. That was mine.
Did you spot that one?
Yeah.
Clever clogs.
Some more there. Some more there.
Oh, there's a mole over there as well.
The small where?
there's some stairs on the side that lead up. So you know when you were looking at this up here, so that those stairs are up here. Yeah, but I don't think you would ever have got into the tunnels this way, would you? Because it would have been a bit of a jump, like you say. But actually what we think happened was this is one of the ways the rubbish came in. So there was a factory up there at one point. They made sweets and cakes and that kind of thing. They were called bid-ups. And when we dug this section of the tunnel out, a lot of jam jars down there. So I think that was all the factory rubbish. It came straight down. I just want to show you from this side as well, just to give you an idea of what we have to dig through. So what you're looking at down there is basically 150 years worth of other people's rubbish. We found some quite interesting things in there. I've got some to show you as we go around. The two questions we always get asked is what's the most valuable thing we've dug up? We're still waiting for Price's treasure down here. We learn a bit about who lived here and when. The other question I always get asked is have we found a dead body? So just put your minds at ease now. Not yet anyway.
Really? Have you not? I would imagine you would have.
Well, we found a lot of bones, but just animal bones
Yeah.
and things. The other thing to say is how the tunnels got filled in. Can you see this is how it started? Look, the people have got in the houses with bubbles and no books underneath.
I see where
Can you see they've made holes in their floor with their cellar, and then they could just drop rubbish straight down without even really leaving the house. And we've got this rubbish chute down here, but also the building when you came in, could you all tell just looking at it?
That's Codey there.
Would those holes not have been used for sewage? Yeah.
This one, I think they pushed that step for a push down. Just so you can bottom for a second. I just want to show you here. So this stone, anyone know what kind of stone this is? Any idea?
Cameron, you know what type of stone is it?
No.
Limestone.
Sandstone?
Sandstone, it's sandstone, yeah. So this goes in a U shape all the way up to the River Mersey and up on the other side. So this goes right back to the dinosaurs' day. This is when it would have started forming. It's hundreds of millions of years old. If you go around the world, they found dinosaur footprints, so we know for certain the dinosaurs would have walked on the sandstone at some point in history when it was forming.
I think something shiny down there. That was a mole.
Yeah, can you hear all the water coming through this?
Yeah, I think they found that one before.
It's just coming through from down below. You can see it goes. You can see it all collects down here. Now we had to pump this out because it doesn't drain away. But when we came back off out of the lockdown, the water was right over to where we've got that step there. And one of our diggers didn't know. He stepped off the edge and went for a bit of a swim.
Oh wow, it just keeps on filling up. So what's the long-term plan here? Just to excavate it all?
That's the idea. I mean, the problem we've got is that actually the railway goes through the middle. So there's also a Friends Society, you might have seen them on social media and stuff, that are also digging on the other side.
Right.
So they're open down again, you can go down and go to the secret tunnel, you can go down and see those. So the idea eventually is all these coming down that should go things together, but like railway goes through the process.
Ah.
Why is it dark in here? Right? I see it.
Can you say, come on girls, don't be afraid.
Oh yeah, I see it. Oh god. Water went down.
Yeah, this bit's a bit wet. Don't look up because you might get a drop of water in your eye.
Do you want to go ahead of me? You want to be at the back in case someone grabs you and steals you.
Yeah, there's nothing underneath. Up there's the ground.
Don't jinx it.
We're not hanging. See? Okay.
I don't want to.
No, we're okay. You're okay.
The picture is shiny, I like it.
We're just on the ground.
I see something shiny. I see something shiny right there. That's really cool. There's like something shiny.
Oh, I've just got a drop on my head.
Something shiny really there.
Whoa, look at that. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, so we had an artist, you know, for capital culture here, came and put that in, so they put the seeds in and gradually started to grow. And now we can't bear to turn the light off and let it die, so no light in that other tunnel, but the mosque goes itself. You can't help but notice these come through as well. Don't know if you've noticed those. Don't remind you of anything, but we think it looks like on a kebab. So it's actually student flats right up above. So there's actually a group of 6 students that live in this house up here that have got no idea, you're just wandering about underneath their kitchen all the time. And one of our guides, John, so when we very first opened, he brought his first, he taught in Peasants and Comps down the road, so he brought his year 7 class round with him. And John says the year 7s were so loud, the first group of students that lived in this house up here could hear them. They thought their kitchen was haunted, so they told the management there was a ghost in there. So they've come and stuffed loads of polystyrene up so no one can hear us now. But John's very proud of that. He says that's completely because of him, because he's too easy. I just also wanted to mention the bricks above your head, because these would fall beneath handmade. So if you lived in Williamson's Liverpool, all the way around the edge here, and Wavertree.
They are massive spider webs. Yeah. They're gigantic spider webs.
I know, how is that relevant? Let's listen to the lady, come on.
I don't know.
Yeah, so the bricks would be made by hand, so what you do, you go to the clay field, you collect the clay, you shape it into a brick. Women shape it into the brick, they put it into a big oven that's probably about 1.5 miles long. Once you've got enough, you sell them on. So it just means that it wasn't just the men working for Williamson, but if you think about the thousands of bricks you've seen already, it's probably supported the brick industry at the time as well.
Can you get down?
It's massive, wasn't it?
There you go. Have we got everyone?
But they go, some of these tunnels go really deep, don't they, as well?
Cameron, come here.
Yeah, they do. So you can see this here is, I don't know if you noticed on the map we had some dotted lines where we didn't know what happened next. So you can see that there's more tunnel going this way.
Yeah.
So this is yet to be dug out. So underneath this concrete we need to dig out here. And can you see that in the wall, which shows us there would have been another arch up above our head. Now did you notice in that far corner there's actually an access point to it there, so there would have been another tunnel up above our heads here. So this would have been 2 tunnels, one on top of the other. Can you see in that corner?
Yeah, I can see it.
So basically the scale of the triple decker, I've got an idea what goes that way, but that's our chapter for the future. What we want to do is start to get digging on this side and see exactly where it goes. I just wanted to tell you all a very quick story about Joseph Williamson before we move on to the next bit. So when he lived up on Mason Street, which is just above where your head is there, it was very nice and pleasant, like you were saying before. The people who had the houses were quite rich, and Joseph thought maybe he should hold a dinner for all his new neighbours. So apparently all these men arrive at his house in their best suits, and when they get there, they're led down these stairs into this underground room. There was nothing in the room at all except for a table and 2 benches, and all the men get out of Joseph Williamson is to sit down and wait for your dinner. I think they waited quite a while.
I've heard the story.
Eventually, I think they got something to eat, but all they got was this tiny little bowl of bean and bacon stew, and being rich men, they're getting a bit offended by what they're being given now, and some of them stand up and try and leave. Now Joseph doesn't really do anything to stop them, apparently he just bows very politely and says, if you want to go, you're free to climb up the stairs and walk out. Perhaps not surprisingly, most of the men decide to leave, but a few stay, just 2 or 3 of them. And to them, Joseph said, well, now I know who my true friends are. He pushed a door open behind him, and in the next room, there was a big banquet laid out. He said, if you don't eat with me on beans and bacon, then you don't get to eat with me at all. That tells you a lot about Joseph Williamson, doesn't it? He definitely was the kind of man that felt you always had to do what was expected of you all the time. Also a good test on your friends, give them horrible foods and see if they stay.
Yeah.
That they are. Right, do you want to go through to the next section?
My friends are mean.
Give my friends a beam. All this concrete here, it all looks modern.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a sad story for us really, because where this wall is here, it wasn't the Williamson tunnel, and that was the original plan.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't in a position, so we don't use it.
Right.
So if you look under your feet, you'll see the sandstone bedrock, so we all have that wall here originally.
So was this concrete put in place for the buildings above?
For us, to take a second up, just when they dug it as a trench in the garden.
Right.
They just kind of mesh and then they just poured in.
Yeah.
Just like cover really.
So there's more tunnels going in different directions along this concrete?
Yeah, on the other side of the railway, yeah. So. Yes, well done. How many all the things you found? 8. Interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Let me just come and show you some of this.
Look, girls, look, this is what we found.
It's
Some
bananas.
common things.
Why do you go with that?
Because I work here, I'm allowed. Right, what do you think these are from? Any idea? Have a look. See?
It looks like from the beach. It's from the beach.
Seashell.
Any idea what kind of fish or shellfish goes in there?
It goes in the sand.
The clam. Clove, you're really close. It's the one that you
It
find
goes
the
in a
tail in.
crab.
Any idea
A
what
crab.
it is?
A crab.
It's an oyster shell, so these are oyster shells. Now we dig these up all the time because I mean today to buy an oyster at a restaurant is very expensive, but for Joseph Williamson
I
they're just
feel
so
like
cheap. Anyone can afford to eat an oyster.
I like to see like
yeah.
a
What do you think that's a skull from? A rat?
it's a
I think it
skull.
may be a rabbit or maybe a rat or a rabbit. What
No,
about,
it's not from a
what about
rabbit.
Jordan? What do you think that's from? Yeah, it is. Cow.
I know what it's from.
Looks like a dog or something, doesn't it?
It
Look
might,
at the teeth.
it
You're
might,
quite close, but a little bit smaller.
it might be from a shark.
Sheep.
Sheep,
Bunny.
yeah, sheep or a goat or something like that. I had someone that came around with me a few years ago though, and he said it was a velociraptor, so that's a good answer as well. Can I just grab your oyster back? And then I just want to show you some of these. So these here are what jam jars used to look like. Can you see? I used to have jam in. You'll see that a lot of them are from Hartley's Jam. It's a little bit dirty, so be careful. So a lot of them from Hartley's Jam. They had their first factory in Liverpool. What else have we got? These.
So that's what you jam with the came in. What does it say on the bottom?
Bottle like that. Okay.
Why? Can I help
What does
one
it say?
of
It
them?
says not genuine units. Wait there, what? Not genuine bearing
You can still buy it in the supermarket. Let's see if
label.
Hartley's one.
Hartley's company is still going today.
Can you put this back where it was?
I can.
I don't want to break it.
Any idea what you're looking for?
I want to hold the hooves. That giant hooves. That would be too wacky. That would. Yeah,
So they would have been fizzy drink bottles. That's what a fizzy drink bottle would look like.
why do they call it water?
Because it's like a fizzy, kind of like a fizzy water. So they designed it like that, especially because it would have had a cork in the end here. And if you stood it up like that, all the air would go out and you'd lose the fizz out of your drink. So they made them like that to stop people standing them up, so your drink stayed fizzy until you wanted to drink it. That's what a fizzy drink bottle is.
Well, how did they carbonate the water back then?
Yeah, they would have just have to inject air into it. Well, kind of like they do today, but very more kind of manual.
Yeah.
Just like inject the air into it.
Horseshoes also.
And
And
this one,
and like they glue it together.
that one, can you see what that one says?
Holding.
Yeah, holding. Have you ever heard of holding before?
Holding.
Why?
And he's quite an important Liverpool man, so he had his own pub and he started a brewery, but he loves sports. So he sat on the board of Everton Football Club and he gave him money from his brewing company to start up at Anfield. Then they had an argument, you probably know the story goes in there, they had an argument, they told Everton they had to lead Anfield, and they ended up on the side of Stanley Park. Then they wanted to start up a second team at Anfield, so they decided they were going to call it Everton Athletic, but the FA said it was too similar, so in the end they settled on Liverpool. So they go thanks that one man in this battle. That's how the two football teams were.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
But is this the end of the foot around the end of the 45-minute team?
Yeah, the section is. So you saw the section when you came out before. This is the final section. Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to have a look on this side as well, Jason? The clock that you've got.
It's too dangerous. It's too dangerous to go down into the deeper ones, deeper tunnels.
That's fine.
Is that a wheel what you found off a wagon, horse and cart?
Yeah, so the building that we use was a stable. It was built in the 1860s. It was where we kept the horses for the rubbish collection. These are just some of the, so as you can see, all our plates are found little pieces and we try and stick it together. It's like a giant jigsaw puzzle, but we haven't got the box, so we don't know what we're making. But this one is a very common plate. You see a lot, they still make these plates today. So the story on this plate here is a bit like Romeo and Juliet. You can see there's a boy and a girl on the plate. They're in the Chinese countryside and they fall in love. But he's their father's secretary, so the father doesn't want them to be together. And you can see there's a bridge with people going over it. That's them being chased by the father's men. In the end, they get killed and they fly off together as two bluebirds at the end of the story. A lovely Chinese legend made up by an English company to sell a place. Nothing to do with Chinese. Oh. The most expensive bit, any idea which the most expensive bit is?
That big police box.
The police box, oh, the reason we've got the police box is because the same watched Doctor Who, the last series of Doctor Who.
That's the TARDIS.
Yeah, Joseph Williamson was a character on Doctor Who recently. The Doctor kept bumping into this man on the tunnels in Liverpool, and it was the Doctor, so his character.
What I knew that is, was that an old tree what someone dropped down?
The TARDIS, no, that was just because they filmed Doctor Who with Joseph Williamson recently, so we put that there. In fact, our manager Dave liked Doctor Who so much we didn't have to buy that, we just stole it on his desk. We have one there already. The most expensive bit is this. That green bit.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, the green one.
I don't think it looks particularly that special, but it's a bit of, yeah. So they call it cabbage green because it looks like a cabbage leaf. So it would be worth a little bit of money if we ever find the two pieces, but we can't, so not really worth that much. Which do you think is the oldest? Any ideas?
I'd say one of those dark.
I think that's
It's going to be one of them at the back, isn't it? The brown ones.
These brown ones at the back.
Yeah.
Well, you're close, but it's actually, I think it's from these. You see these blue stripy ones? Oh, yeah. I think they look quite modern. You can still get that in idea, can't you, really? But that was the oldest, so they date from 1870.
I thought it was the golden one because they have golden on.
Yeah, like those little pink and gold ones down there. Yeah, like that.
I don't like.
So these ones over here, the oldest?
Yeah, there's blue and brown and beige. Some of those go back to 1870. I mean, some of it's more modern. You can see they came up with different designs.
I want to be original.
But the art on them, would that have been still printed or would that have been like put on them manually by...
The glaze, yeah, so some of them...
No, I mean these ones. Are you talking about these ones or those ones?
No, it's those blue stripy ones.
Ah, they're the oldest ones.
Yeah, but these, I mean, very early on, these would have been painted by hand, the ancient Chinese, but the British version was just done with transfer, yeah. But it's, so they still do the willing pattern today, don't they? So apparently it's the longest imprint pattern in Britain. It's been running right since way before Williamson's day, and they still produce it today.
Is that egg? That's snake egg.
Yeah, it's a snake egg.
Yeah.
Oh my
Careful.
God. Is it you one?
No. It's just a bit of shell. Right, should we just move? Is there any other questions about this before we move?
Oh, no, it's been great.
How can you make giant plates?
Giant plate.
Is that the world's biggest plate?
No.
Well, these ones at the back would have been, like, you would have had them if you had very nice dinner. You would have had them as serving plates. So that one at the back over there is for soup. That's a soup tureen. And these bigger ones would have been for serving dishes as well.
So your best portion.
This big jar over here, would that have had wine in it or water?
Varnish. Was a varnish. There was varnish in it.
Was it, yeah?
Tankard of varnish. Yeah, I always think it looks like it should have bacon in it, doesn't it?
Yeah. So this big dome here is a tunnel within a tunnel.
Yeah, so once you start holding, we've got one tunnel and we've got the one above our heads, so it's still a little bit of a tunnel, so it's two quickly started in two tunnels at the same time.
How come it's covered up with a piece of plastic?
Just because of the water damage, but we don't want it to get damaged too much with the water, but once
Right.
you come down the bottom here, you'll be able to see it properly, you can see it from the underside.
So do you just keep on digging and then find the beginning of another tunnel?
Yeah, basically, yeah. So in the, you know, I was saying when we came in, we we dig in the triple decker. So got into there on Easter Monday 2008. We think there's 2 tunnels down there. We haven't actually hit the bottom, so we don't know whether the bottom one's gone, whether the arch has disappeared, or whether it's still lower down, because we just haven't hit bedrock yet. So basically we just keep going. I can't wait to find a bottom.
Maybe do the 2 pieces of that plate down there. I know.
Did anyone spot the mole?
That hole there, you know, we went in, we saw that door that we came through. Yeah, I think you said that there's more tunnels through that way. Well, that goes through to there, so the tunnel that way. But also there would have been a PC here, there's a tunnel in there. So that would have originally gone right the way out this way. But when they built the stable block, it must have gone. It also goes down lower than the floor, so probably about 6 feet down, underneath here as well. So it's kind of 3 tunnels going up in different directions. I think it was like
Isn't that crazy, this?
It's a shame it's very... It should be more transparent. There's a better piece of glass there. Piece of perspex.
Yeah, someone bought it, so you can see they turned it into a bar. So there's going to be people dancing in here.
This is going to be a bar?
Yeah, so developers bought it, they're taking this over. I mean, we did actually used to hire it out for club nights and things, so they quite liked it, you know, you could get blazers and stuff going on. Yeah. So people did used to come for like raves and things down here, and we had Jules Holland play down here. We've had people play before, but now it's going to be a bar all year round, so fingers crossed we'll still have access to the tunnels for the time being, but quite sure what's going to happen. But
is that why you let it out there, let someone buy it so you can still get the funds and like to do your digging?
Because we don't own it, so we've just been in here on a lease. So we've got a 100-year lease. We paid Peppercorn Rental would pay council £1 in the 1990s, which means we can stay here for 100 years. But we don't own it, so you know if it gets sold, we can't really do anything about it. So no one's day. Oh, pipes, clay pipes.
Oh, I wouldn't like that. You feel unfulfilled if you didn't get.
I know, we don't got to carry on. So we're all a little bit uncertain about what's going to happen.
Oh, it'd be a shame for it to be closed down based on just people coming to have a drink and a dance.
I know. So I mean, at the moment it's all amicable and we think that we'll be all right. But it just also things like, you know, losing the space where we used to have like a DVD here we could watch, and you know more of the things that you could like touch and look at, which we haven't got the space anymore. But so that's probably why you've noticed that there's just stuff everywhere at the moment, because basically this is a building site in the week, so all this stuff's getting moved around. But
it's culture, it's heritage, you know what I mean? It's interesting to see, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So who bought it for £1 and then what? They passed it on to their child and to their child?
It was council owned, so they just gave us a lease. So when we do the peppercorn ones, it just meant that we could stay here. So we didn't own it, we never did, but we were allowed to stay for 100 years and carry on doing the digging and the garden and stuff. It was sold to someone else, and he wasn't really bothered, he just let us be here and crack on with it. But then it's been sold to someone else, well, anything's about these things, isn't it? So anything you can see if you want to turn it into a bar. I mean, I'm sure it will be like good, like the acoustics and everything, but yeah, it's just a bit uncertain for us. We're not quite sure what's going to happen.
It's the culture and the history behind Liverpool, and you're just gonna, if it all goes, it just stops, doesn't it?
I wonder if it's structurally sound though to have a bar here. I mean, would this have all been checked to see whether?
Yeah, I mean, they are pretty. I mean, they get to, you know, when we dig them out, we have to survey them and stuff. Well, actually, so because they've had raves and things before, we know it's right. But underneath here, actually, there would have been another tunnel in Joseph Williamson's day, so this would have been another triple decker. So originally underneath here, there was about a 30-foot drop, but we've backfilled that with the spoilers. We take it out of the tunnels. So, but this is actually dancing on nothing really, but it is, you know, it's filled, so it'll be safe. But,
I wonder how he would have felt about it being turned into a bar.
Well, actually, I think he wasn't very keen on people at all, so I don't think he'd like it at all. Apparently, when he was alive, he never really took anyone around to see his tunnels. He used to say, I'm not a showman and these aren't show shops, so he was quite secretive, really.
Yeah.
He didn't in fact, let me just show you on this wall here. You can see, this is what it would look like when Joseph Williamson was here. So these paintings were done in 1858. So this is 18 years after he's died. So can you see the way he has a big high wall around everything, so no one could really get in and see what he was doing. Exactly. So these are Joseph's houses on Mason Street. So you can imagine this here is where we've just come out. So that is the street up at the top there. So you can see how he used to put his, he originally used these ones for his gardens, but what these don't show you is that he carried on another 100 years.
Aren't those in town?
I found those. I found some of
They're
those.
similar to when you go along by the Albert Dock.
Yeah.
They're very similar, aren't they? So those ones were built for a similar reason, to like raise the level up when they used to have the dock before the Albert Dock. It used to be. Have you been to Liverpool 1? Have you seen outside John Lewis? There's like a glass hole in the ceiling, in the floor. That's where the original dock was. So they put those along that road to lift the road up and support it. And there are some from the railway as well. So exactly the same, yeah.
I found some symbols up there. This one.
This is how the site was when you first started.
This is, so you see these flats along the front here?
Yeah.
So they went up probably about 8 years ago.
That's underneath them.
Yeah, so they did all the surveys, thought they were good to go. The problem we have is because you saw how dense it was when the tunnels were filled in.
Yeah.
Even if they do a survey, it just looks like solid ground, they can't tell they're underneath. So it turns out there's 3 tunnels under there. We didn't know anything about, so they go out in a rectangle underneath that building there, and then joins up with one underneath the bar there. Now in theory, they've put a concrete shelf on top, so maybe, I don't know, one day we'll get in there and dig those out, but yeah.
I found lots of moles over there on the roof.
On the roof?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Things
See?
in there, there's like, you know, there's things hanging off the ceiling.
Oh, in the lights, yeah.
But this was all Williamson's land, wasn't it? It was all his land.
Yeah.
So why didn't it continuously pass on to his family?
Good quite, but well, he had no children to inherit from him, so he was married, him and his wife Elizabeth had no children. So he had one ward that was his friend's daughter that he kind of adopted. He had a farm in Cumbria that he left to her, and then we don't know what happened to the rest of it. We think he actually left it to the foreman, so he was the man that was training all the men and that was kind of supporting with all the work. So we think maybe almost out of gratitude for what he'd done, we think he left it, the land, some of the land at least, to him, but then we just don't know what happened to it. Same with the portrait you saw when you went in. We know there were 3 portraits painted of Joseph Williamson, but that's the only one we've ever found. We don't know where the other 2 have gone.
That's a copy though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in the Walker Gallery, the original. It's in storage. They never get it out. Sometimes they get Elizabeth out, but they never get Joseph out. But yeah, both in storage. Yeah, so he's a bit of a mystery because he never really wrote anything down himself, and I think he was a bit secretive. And a lot of the men in those days, they wouldn't have been able to write down their own stories, so a lot of it just got, you know, lost in history because we just don't know exactly what happened to him. Yeah, so just picture here, can you see, so if you can imagine those houses there would have been, can you see where the glass ceiling is and that wall at the top? That's where Joseph would have built his house. And if you look at the height difference like that, it convinces me why he built tunnels the way he did, because can you imagine once they built that one arch, can you see what I was saying about you can climb on top, put a frame up and build the next above until he reached right the way up until to Mason Street?
Yeah, I just don't see the point in doing these arches though, consistently.
So I think maybe it would be a saving thing, because you can imagine if he wanted to put his gardens up there at the back of his houses.
Yeah.
Imagine if he'd put a big solid retainer wall in, how many bricks it would have taken. And the other option would have been to backfill all the space, you know, with rubble to keep it. So I think it was probably quite a clever thing, because it's much less bricks, isn't it, to build a couple of thin arches on top of each other than it is to fill the whole thing up. So I think that's how he started off with.
No, but why fill it in the first place? Why not just have the big arch? What purpose does that serve?
To get up there, because if you imagine, there's 30 feet below
To jump up there?
Yeah, so we would have supported, so 30 feet below this would have been the original ground level in Williamson's day, so they would have built one, and it's just a height thing. If you built one really tall arch, it wouldn't be very strong, would it? Because it would be narrow, coming to a thin point. So he's built one, it's solid, they can use that to, basically like a step really, like putting scaffolding up out of bricks, then they get on top of it. And then can you see that arch is independent, but it sits on top of this one.
Yeah.
So it kind of is the way of climbing.
Yeah, and would you?
Right the way up.
So what would they have put on that? Would they have put anything on it, or?
Gardens, we think.
So on these arches, there would have been gardens?
Not in the middle ones, just the top ones. You can see on this version here, actually, look, they've actually filled that one in there with a curtain wall.
Yeah.
So because they probably weren't using it from the front, so people were could get into the tunnels, but they've just filled it in. He was only really, when he started off, he was only really interested in this
the
top one.
Yeah.
But I think, like you were saying before then, he just got obsessed with tunnels and everything underground, and then it just kind of snowballed, and he ended up with this huge, a little bit like, you know, if you go to like a stately home and they've built like follies, they've built like a castle out, and you know, they've built things to kind of entertain themselves almost. I feel like it was maybe Williamson's version. He had this kind of big tunnel network underneath his
And if he
house.
wasn't a people person, why not?
So let's put ourselves in this day. We were standing here and we're looking out facing this way. What would we have seen? Nothing. Would it just be in the middle of Mersey?
Yeah, because it would have been, and also where we're standing here wouldn't even have been ground level. This has been built up so much with building over the years that where underneath that tunnel is 30 feet down would have been the ground level
Yeah.
if we were standing at the bottom of the hill, and that would have been the top of the hill, and this would have just been sandstone, just a big sandstone drop behind us, which is the edge of Edge Hill. So that's, and also that was why it was very fashionable. That's why it was wealthy people that lived here, because right out of the city, and yeah, as you say, beautiful views over. You could see the Welsh Hills, you could see the River Mersey. It made it like a very fashionable place, and you can tell by the houses, can't you, that they were.
So that means then, when the tide was out, it would have just been sludge for a mile.
No, so the city centre would have been where it was, but this was very countrified still.
Was
so it would have been kind of, I mean, there was still the brook and the stream that we have that the roads are named after and stuff, so it would have been quite countrified. So there would have been houses up until here, but when Williamson built these houses on Mason Street, nobody lived there apart from Edward Mason, who the street was named after, and he just lived on the corner. There was one house and nothing else was developed, so he basically, I suppose it was the first suburb of Liverpool, wasn't it? But we've gone so much further out now that, yeah. So, I mean, it's what cities are always like, isn't it? Everyone always wants to live a little bit out, and it just kind of sprawls out a bit, yeah.
So how deep have you actually gone?
So the deepest point up to the triple decker I'm telling you about is underneath here. So we've got a fair way down underneath here, the triple decker. So as I said, that originally would have been about 30 feet down from below here.
So you can't get access to that one anymore?
No, so it's backfilled. What we did have was a trapdoor at the back, so we used to get it. We could, visitors couldn't go in, but we could get in it.
Yeah.
They've actually boxed that over though, so I don't know quite what we're going to do
Oh.
with that. Hopefully they'll be able to put something in to change it, but yeah.
Because you haven't still reached the end of those tunnels, have you?
No, so what we're going to hit is, so can you see where this new block of flats has gone up here? Can you see that gap between that and the car park?
Oh yeah.
That's the railway there.
Right.
So this tunnel here that we're in will eventually hit the railway. Actually, when they were building the railway, so you know this railway here into Edge Hill? It looks quite like the tunnels, doesn't it, when you go into Lime Street, you know, the brick walls?
Guys,
so they built that. That was
this
the
is
first
amazing.
railway in Britain, the first city railway in Britain. So Williamson's men would have been in the tunnel underneath here, and they could hear them start on the railway, and it would have been a bit above their heads. So Williamson's men thought it would be a good idea to just knock a little hole in their roof so they could watch as they built the railway. Apparently Stevenson's men who worked on the railway, all Irish Catholics, had no idea what was going on. They dig down and suddenly there's a hole underneath them, and they could hear all these voices down there and see Williamson's men moving about. So apparently they thought they'd broken into hell and they all liked it. But supposedly Joseph Williamson climbed up into the railway and told them to come and see what a proper tunnel should look like. So yeah, that's the problem, is eventually we'll just hit the railway there because it came across in the middle of the tunnels, yeah.
This is spider.
Oh, they're everywhere, these spiders at the moment, you know. So how many moles did you find?
10.
10. Well, good news is you're my champions for today. That's the best score so far. This morning they only managed 8.
You are
Slightly bad news is that there's 14, so you're going to have to come back on. Okay. Yeah, the spiders are everywhere at the moment. Trying to get rid of them. So I think that was everything.
Well,
Thank you so much.
yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really interesting, wasn't it, see?
Mum.
So even though when you walk around
Mum.
Liverpool, think there's all
Mum.
these underground.
Mum.
What?
He's been the best behaved.
These have all been very good, actually. It's going to be a
That's
hard
very
choice.
old.
Just the day isn't over.
Thank
The
you.
day isn't over.
Look how rusty
You're
that is.
old.
Right, take it easy everyone.